curator at the University Art Museum. Been working with David Lamelas now since 2013 on this exhibition that we have on view, which is part of the Getty Pacific Standard Time Initiative. It was always my desire to do some screenings in the space. And you have my deepest, sincerest apologies that this is not taking place in this proper screening room, as David would prefer. Let me tell you a little bit about David. David is from Buenos Aires. He went to school in Argentina as a young man. He was very much part of the avant-garde in Argentina in the early 60s. He represented Argentina at the Sao Paulo Biennale in 1967. The following year, he represented Argentina at the Venice Biennale of 1968. David went to school at St. Martin's in London on scholarship, and afterwards he stayed in Europe and was part of the avant-garde in Europe of the time. He met a very key figure in his life and his practice as an artist was Marcel Broders, who he met at the Venice Biennale, where he was showing his exhibition or his piece, Office of Information, about the Vietnam War on 3 levels. Through Marcel Broders, he met many people who were critical players in the conceptual scene of Europe of the time. David started making films. His first film was a study of relationships between inner and outer space. That was in 1969. It was followed by several films, one of which is this 1970 film that we're screening tonight, film 18 Paris for 70 People and Time Paris. This film was made with, he was collaborating with Pierre Grinberg and Romolo Ascari. He was also working with Daniel Buren, a conceptual artist, to make this film. David was very much making films of a conceptual nature, this time looking at ideas about place, looking at ideas about time, the passage of time, about narratives of a documentary nature and when it gives way to fiction. These were all concerns of his. So it's very interesting to see, though, this transition that he makes from these more conceptual films to the narrative videos and films for which he's more well known for the work that he did with Hildegarde Duane in the 70s, the video work at that time, and 2 films that we're going to see tonight, which is The Invention of Dr. Morel, which is based on a short novella by Adolfo Bioy Casares, an Argentine novelist, and then Light at the Edge of the Nightmare, which we'll be speaking about later. These both have narrative elements in them, but there are certain breaks in narratives, and those breaks in narratives don't become apparent until you've seen the entire film.
The first film was originally made for an exhibition in Paris called 18 Paris 70. So the idea was that I call that the limited age of cinema, right? This is where I was working with the camera. It was like a person is discovering time to the cinematographer, and 3 minutes later the cutting time. So at the beginning of the camera and the camera. So that was 1970. And the other two films, they have a fabulous soundtrack. Unfortunately, I want to apologize, we won't hear that. Because you only have one speaker. I do apologize. I won't make justice to the composers. So we see a very, we hear a very cool soundtrack of the film. So I do apologize. I'm sorry to say. Films, I was introduced film to an art exhibit sort of thing. And it's always very difficult to show film. In a way, it's a proper context to show this film in an art context. So thank you, Kristina, thank you. And thank you, The picture of the cinema are very different. The first one is based on a novel by Adolfo Casares, Invention of Morel, and shown in Berlin and then we have a break for 5-10 minutes and we show the third one. Thank you. Bad projection, but I do apologize. But I hope the message went through. Yeah. You know, you wanted to make it as it was, you know, but you got it. Yeah? Any questions about this film? This one.
How did you work with the adaptation of the novel? How did the process start?
Oh, that was a long process. I went to Argentina from LA. I met with Casares, and I got his permission to do it. Originally, it was going to be a feature length, written by Karen Black, the actress, and so we were a happy trio. That's a good way. And then one of those things I turned into a short. So then I adopted it into a few pages, and Joey Casares passed away while we were doing the editing. So, you know, he became my life friend, Joey Casares. And so, it was a great story for me and Joey. Any questions? Yes.
First, thank you so much, David. This is so beautiful and smart and so well accomplished. It was just such a pleasure to see them. But my question has to do with your evolution as a filmmaker and thinking about time, because it became evident these films were joined together on their feature having to do with time, common feature, and being stuck in time in a way. Like the first piece, essentially the same moment over and over again. And the second piece, they're stuck in a kind of recursive time. They're stuck in the 30s forever. And this last piece, though we evolved through different eras, I appreciate those eras indicated by footwear, which is very but they're not in the last piece, not so much stuck in time as stuck in cinema. But it seems to me that the first piece is almost the polar opposite of the last piece, and that is, in 1970, you were trying to kind of like break open cinematic time by revealing it to be real. It's like, here we are right now. As you said, here we are in Los Angeles. But the second piece almost does the opposite of that. It just, you know, we repeat in the cycle of cinema. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about, I don't know, the evolution of your thinking about time as a filmmaker.
In this movie?
Yeah, well, or maybe overall.
Yeah, I know, in this movie, because it's like, you know, I wanted to, in Argentina, it's like a 1950s, 40s movie, and in every country, it's like a French movie, like an English movie, German movie, using the style of filmmaking from it's a description of cinema of each culture, let's put it that way, yeah. That was the idea, you know.
Right. Well, and starting with the one in 1970.
Oh, the one in Argentina the idea was to make it, that's why it's black and white, like a, like a movie made in the late 1940s.
Oh no, I mean the first film, the 10-minute film.
Oh, you're talking about the films?
Yeah.
All the films. Oh, okay. That's complicated.
So
okay.
That's under this film.
Oh, well, that makes it more complicated then.
Yeah.
Well, the first one was, it had a specific, it was a specific project for a specific show. Conceptual artist in Paris, curated by Sigalo. It was the most conceptual house you can get, So, and I was into that state of frame, and the idea was just to use the camera as the subject of the film. Let's say action and cut. He gives the time when the camera should begin and the camera when it should end. So, and nothing happens in the camera but the passage of time. That was the idea of the first one. Yeah. And then you asked me about the evolution into cinema. Okay. Well, then we had that one, which is the Violent Tapes in 1975, which is also, in fact, that is about violence too. It's about violence. The Violent Tapes in 1975 is a feature that I never made, but it exists as stills. The idea of that movie, can I tell you the idea of that movie? It is it happens in the future, in a society with no violence, right? And the new society is perfect. Everybody's happy, everybody has everything they need, so there's no need for violence. But these two young anthropologists find a videotape from the BBC London in 1975 where they manage to view it and they see war, violence. So they become very interested in what that people can express themselves through violence. So they start inviting the friends at home to see the tapes, and the friends, so it becomes a big deal. They discover they can contradict the system, that they can actually become violent against whatever, even if it's perfect, somebody's unhappy somehow. So the government hears of that, and they try to stop the spreading of that information, and they send an agent to take possession of that videotape, but they claim that it is, that people should know about this. And so they don't want to give the tape back. So then it starts a chase to capture that tape. And again and again, the circle of violence begins again. So that's so in a way that movie, the one which I saw, is related to that endless circle of violence that for some unfortunately we seem to have.
I want to know, is it the women walking around in those shoes, is that why they were driven to stab the women were walking around in those impossible shoes all the time, and I would drive me to violence to be walking around in the city in shoes like that. But anyway, I'm teasing.
Okay.
I'm teasing you. Why, when you say that there's a nightmare, this is the light at the edge of the nightmare. Whose nightmare are we talking about?
Both of them.
Both of them.
Yes.
And are they meeting in the nightmare? Or are they meeting in life? This is my question. I mean, are the nightmares colliding, or are the people actually colliding?
Well, I really have no explanation to each of those questions, because it is what it is. It is a nightmare.
Yes.
And it's about desire and vengeance. For whatever reason. I don't understand why they're angry to each other, because both love each other, but at the same time there is a huge clash. Is it, I cannot explain why.
There's a theme with the knife, the knife in itself. There is a theme, like a recurrent theme with the knife, that like the knife is...
Well, I used the knife in my very first tape ever, the hand. And the hand, the knife represented censorship. And because the knife is in the control room, controlling the information. And here in a way too, there is some information that they know about each other, they want to stop spreading. That's one thing I can think of.
And then was it intentional to always have, like the woman always leaves the dude lying there, and she's always the victor, but you never, like, especially at the very beginning, you're not sure how that's going to play out because of the trope of the female getting stabbed or killed or somehow endangered.
Well, yeah, I play that duality because usually in movies and reality, men kill women, so in this case I wanted to make the opposite, so it's a comment on that too, but I don't want to be really preaching that, so it's a way to show that problem.
There's a reverse at the beginning, you can see the reverse expectation. The woman is keeping the man, and then it happens over and over, and the expectation is exactly that. We know the woman is going to kill the guy, no matter how nice this guy is. At the end, there's the romantic, the romantic white guy, and he's definitely all people killed, okay? And I was fascinated that even through the repetition.
I get closer to not hear you. What's that? Okay.
You're so enamored and good at expressing your love for the gesture, the minimal detail. Your fetishism for shoes, but not just for shoes, for every single detail, the way of the skirt versus the, flow versus...
Yeah, but it was not my fetish about shoes. No, it's not about that. I don't have a fetish about shoes, I don't. No, but it's that we can, in this culture, we can relate high heels to danger, to extreme possession in a way. So it's really about power. It's power.
Yeah.
She has the power of the heel and the knife.
No, but you're talking to us exactly through the power of the cliche that we understand.
Oh, you understand.
So well. That you turn them into a poetics of the cliche, so that every shoe is a different meaning than the other shoe. So there is the vintage 1940s versus the punkish versus, we get into even that detail of all those different slight aesthetic differences.
Yeah, even the story is the same, every detail is different and they behave differently and they are different people,
There's a language of objects in gestures and actions and details and even cliches in a good sense. I don't mean it.
Oh, no, I didn't take it badly. I thought, yeah.
And music time, because I love also that for the repetition, you have a chronic accuracy. You have anachronisms always inserted when you move from the color of the black and white, when you move from the 50s to something like 70s or 90s. You're playing a lot because every anachronicity establishes a different kind of manifestation or association. Is this a foul down or is this something else? And I think we bring a lot of richness within all that repetition. So we know the guys that have been kissed out, okay? We make peace with that.
By which one you know that's going to happen? By the second one or by the third one?
By the third one.
By the third one, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was playing also with the idea of information. How information, even though it's repeated, how long it takes you to understand the plot. It's about plot, film plot. It's all about film, really, because it's really about filmmaking. Even the way it looks, it's like it's about film, really.
That's what I meant when I said they're stuck in cinema. They're not in time, they're in cinema.
Yeah, there is cinema time. Yeah.
But also cinema theme. It doesn't matter who or what they are. They just
Exactly.
repeat the same thing.
I mean, I would say that this is a 15-minute clip of a longer feature
Yeah.
where you take away all the reasons why they do it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why they do it. It doesn't interest me why they do it. It just want that film moment of violence. You know, and I like movies where, I mean, at least from myself, people getting ready to do something. I like that moment when you're meeting somebody. You know, when you go somewhere, you do something, you have to get ready to that moment. That moment, for some reason, interests me. When you get, and usually it's on your own. You go through this big thing that is sometimes it's love, sometimes it's hate, sometimes it's vengeance, sometimes it's jealousy, sometimes it's friendship. You know, each time you go out to meet somebody, you're a different person, also. You know, sort of thing. Yeah.
It seems to me, though, David, that we can look in the exhibition itself and see film script manipulation of meaning, and there is that same kind of unfolding where Linda appears to be doing. I mean, there's this big buildup of her coming, you know, walking down the hill, getting in the car, going to the galleries.
And it's a glass that breaks.
And the glass that breaks.
It's a knife in a way.
Yes, there's this rupture that happens, and yet in this case, in the case of film script, you've actually built the repetitions into the installation itself, because we have the 3 slide projectors. You have what was 16 millimeter transferred to video.
Well, yeah. Film script is like the even no. There was one called cumulative script that we don't have here, and then it's film script, and then the evolution that you asked for is here. It's like film script has all these elements of this movie,
Right.
you know. So is the evolution is like well, when I first started doing film, I wanted to make documentaries, but then I realized that, for example, that the thin line between document in filmmaking and entertainment. You know, even if you want to make a movie, serious movie, as I wanted to make a serious movie about something, then the audience laughed. You know, and I thought, oh, this is offensive, but wow, you know, I thought it was a serious filmmaker, you know, and oh wow, you know, and then that happened with the study relationships between art and space. That it was a very conceptual, very serious movie to me, you know. So, but then the audience started laughing during the interviews.
Well, it was mainly there was one woman that they were laughing at.
Well, no, they laughed at each one of them.
Did they?
They laughed or they made emotional comments. Oh, how cute the boy is, how beautiful, how funny is the old man, or how sexy is the blonde woman. So each one has an emotional, and then I realized that in cinema it's very hard to avoid emotional reaction. So, and then I decided to use it, kind of thing.
But this idea of information, I mean, one of the things that I love, and I've loved to learn about this piece, and you reflected this in the conversation about Lion at the Edge of the Nightmare, with the idea of kind of capturing a style of cinema particular to place, is one of the things that David did with this piece is that he actually was looking at those photos that you would see in the lobby of a movie theater, and those photos that were used to entice you to come to the next week to see the next feature film, and the way that they captured information, that critical information in each frame. And so when David storyboarded this entire sequence before he actually made the photos.
And it was just as I made it just as I arrived from LA. So LA was very influential in that respect. So I was living in London, I came to LA to make The Desert People, and suddenly I was confronted with the movie industry, entertainment a bit of the world. I didn't know that LA was Hollywood somehow. It was interesting. So then I realized I was here, and then even though I always loved cinema, I decided to integrate that in my fantasy, sort of thing. So then when I went to London, I saw a lot of picture books about the syntaxis of cinema, how the camera angles mean something to the audience, to us, So each one of these is like each angle represents a cinematic moment, kind of thing,
Yeah, but you have the conflict, you have, there is, this prop that's at the center of the action. Going back to Light at the Edge of the Nightmare, you have this playing out. I'm just wondering, in terms of moving forward from this to that idea of making a film like it would be in Berlin or in London or Los Angeles. What were the kind of the key features that to you kind of epitomize that idea of those stylistic elements that create the scene?
How do I choose?
Right. How did you choose? I mean, it's. I guess a question I would have is, what directors were you looking at, or what things were you? What made it quintessentially British? That particular.
Oh no, I wasn't looking at any British director. I felt I was a British director then.
Right.
I played roles, you see. I like to be, in Argentina, I'm an Argentinian guy. Right. Here I'm Angelino, in London I'm British.
Okay.
So it's like I become that.
I see. Okay.
I don't look at anybody else. That's just me.
But it's almost like the cities were also like a third character.
Well, the cities are important, yeah. But don't forget, I left Argentina when I was very young, and I reinvented myself in London. I grew up in London, so then when I came to LA, also I had to do that again because nobody knew anything about me, so I had to explain who I was, and I had to present myself to this new culture. And the same thing is when I go back to Argentina, I have to become again this Argentinian guy I left 50 years ago. So, but and then people say, oh, you look like after 3 days you never left. It's strange, even though inside it's completely different as I was, I adapt very well, easily. So, and here the same,
We haven't spoken yet really about invention of Dr. Morell and how that came about as a film. The story of that is. You're all right.
Okay.
If you could speak to, in that case, this was that started from a script that you co-wrote with Karen.
Well, the invention of Dr. Morell is very special to me because it comes from a very special novel.
Yes.
And then I read that many years ago, and then I left it on. When I left Buenos Aires, I left it on in my night table in the bedroom, and then when I went back years later, I found it again, and then one day I thought, in a way I thought film script is somehow related. All my work is related to that novel somehow, and then I said, yeah, because it plays with the idea of questions the idea of reality, kind of thing. And then I decided to work on it, And then one day I was on the phone with Karen Black, and I said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing this, thinking of writing this screenplay." She said, "What is the story?" And she loved the story. She said, "Well, let's do it together." And that's how the whole thing began. And she said, oh, let's do it together. So we met for lunch, and then I went to Argentina to get the ride. So it was a few years process. It was like a big chunk of my life. And I get to know beautiful people because of that. Joy Casares and Karen Black. You know who Karen Black was, right? Beautiful human being.
And how did you meet her?
Oh, I tell you one thing. How I met Karen Black is a funny story. I was staying Hildegard and Duane, lived in Laurel Canyon in those days. And then she left for 1 week or 2 weeks, so I stayed in her house, right? And one day, telephone rang, and the pick up, hello, and this voice said, well, is Hildegard? And they said, no, she's not here. I said, she'll be back in the next week or 10 days. And she said, and who are you? She got these boys, you know. And who are you? And I said, well, I'm David. And he said, what do you do? He said, you know, I'm a friend of Hildegard, and, you know, and what are you working on? I said, and then I was thinking of this novel, and she said, let's do it together. So, on the phone, yeah, no, we spent almost like a 65, 70-minute conversation. Because I told her the whole story. She's very creative. She was very creative. So she really got into it. She gave, oh yeah, maybe you should do this, you should do that. Oh yeah, okay, let's do it together, she said, you know. And that's how it happened. So the conversation was great with Karen. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And what was the process once you had the script done?
Oh, it's a long process. First was Karen Black.
Yes.
It was a big deal to deal with. And I got the invention of Morel in English for her. She read it, and then we met many times discussing the screenplay. And then she was an actress, but also a very good writer. And by then she has already written maybe 5, 6 screenplays, you know. And then I had to get the rights. So from Joy Casares, I went to Argentina, and it's very hard to get in touch with Joy Casares because it's like a monstrous, you know, like a big, in Argentina is a big celebrity, more like a celebrity, hard to get to, you know. What the French call a monstre sacré. And then I had to get in touch with him, and I got to a friend of a friend of a friend, his phone number. But I talked to his assistant, and his assistant said he only answers the phone on Thursday between 11 and 12. So call him back that day. Okay, so we made a phone appointment. So I called him and I told him that I wanted to make a movie version of this novel. And he said, oh, I'm very unhappy about cinema and my writing. It has never worked out. So, but nevertheless, come and see me. So, and meeting Joy Casares was probably one of the highest moments in my entire life. I really had it's really true, I'm not, you know, it's not a fantasy. I got elevated. And you say when you got it has a name, you know, when you go.
You levitated?
I levitated, yeah. Very strange, very, very strange. I really, when I left the room, as soon as I left the room, I went higher and higher. I was this high. No, literally, it was very strange. I was really looking down on everything. And then I took the bus home, you know, which was maybe about 25-minute ride. And I got home, and my sister said, how did it go? And I said, oh, very well. No, literally. Literally. Yes, literally. And it was absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah. So, I think probably the two most amazing personalities I found in my life in that respect were Marcel Protas and Joy Casares. They had that. I don't know what it is, but that energy, creative energy. I would say those two were my highest point in terms of been elevated.
And how then did the film actually culminate? It was filmed in Germany.
Oh, well, it was a long process. Well, then I got the rights. It was not easy to get the rights because his agent was in Spain, in Barcelona. So I had to get the rights for very little, and then in fact the rights were in the hands of another filmmaker, and then he eventually, when the contract expired, he gave it to me the rights to his agent. And I invested myself for 1 year the rights for the movie. I signed a contract. Before production, we had to pay him $200,000, and that was a problem. That's why the movie was never made, because I never found those $200,000 to begin, because it was just before the movie started production. He had to get the money. So
For the full feature.
For the feature length, Karen finished the screenplay, was 98 pages, and he read it and everything, and it was back and forth, Argentina, LA, and I was a messenger between Karen Black and Bill Casares, and it was very interesting because when I see one of the high points is when I said that I wanted to make the movie with Karen Black. He said, "Oh my God, she's one of my favorite actresses." But he's from that generation, you see. And when he was maybe 50, she was 23, sort of thing. So and then he said to me, well, he said, I have a friend that I didn't know I had. So that was cool. And then I came here, I passed all the messages to her, the correction, the Casares to Karen Black, and me and everything. So, and then the screenplay was very successful actually. And Karen said one day, David, she said, all my other screenplays are like carrying a dead horse. And this one, everybody wants it. He got attention for some reason, but nobody had the $200,000 to pay, So, and then I was very close. I got a co-production between Spain, Los Angeles, and then that was about to happen, but then they wanted another director. They wanted to buy the screenplay for $75,000. It would have been for me only 35 and 35 for Karen. So I said no, and she wanted to sell. And she said one day over the phone, she said, David, she said, I'm throwing chairs into the walls. You know what that means? So, she was upset at me, But, and then I decided not to open to raise the money for the future. Then I was in Berlin and I talked to Mr. Meschede, who was the curator of the DAT program in Berlin. And he said, let's do it here. And then they sponsored the movie from DAT.
And how did you end up with Brian Cox? I mean, he's not exactly a small time.
No, Brian Cox was another story, because then I tell you how I find, you find your actors and friends and your lovers in strangest of ways, right? I found Bernadette in my gym. And he was working out, I was working out, and one day we started talking. And I was looking for...
And he's Anton in the movie.
Yeah, and I was looking for him. For the acting. And I didn't realize for weeks and weeks. He said, I'm an actor, but I didn't think of him. He said, I said, I need Faustine. So he connected me with his agent, Velvet, actors agency in Berlin, and approached agent of Velvet, and then I got like 5 or 6 tapes of possible actors who wanted to work with me, and then my choice was Nicola Sari, who is an actress from Berlin, Iranian father and German mother. And then one day I was telling Werner all these stories, and I was looking at him and I said, something clicked in my mind. I said, that's Anton. And then that's how I met Anton and Nicole. And then we still didn't find Dr. Morel. And we were through Velvet, we didn't find the one. Of course, there was not money, there was not pay for the acting, so that was very limited, even though it was very little pay. It was some pay, but not a big amount. And then Nicole said one day, David, she said, no, she was most on the phone because she was in Vienna, doing a play in Vienna. She was doing Alma. And then she said, oh, David, I have this English-Scottish friend of mine that he's the best. I said, okay. I said, okay, he ended up being Brian Cox. And then, and then I said, send him the screenplay. She said, and send him the full screenplay, 99 pages. And he agreed, and he came to Berlin to do it. And after that, they got married, and they're still married, and they have two beautiful children.
Amazing.
And the two of them are studying acting.
Kids?
The kids, yeah. They're amazing, those kids, really are. So it has been a great, I mean, they became my family. Very interesting, yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions for David? Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Benjamin, you have a question? I'm sure you don't have a question. Come on, have a question.
I'm more curious.
One moment. Benjamin is my young producer, so let's listen what he has to say. What's your question?
As far as like how the second film, you're just talking about how you got all the actors and stuff. How long did filming take place? You were filmed all on location, right?
The German in Berlin?
Yeah.
Oh, that we didn't have much time because that was done at the Marble Palais in Potsdam, and it's considered a national treasure. So we are allowed there to do that for 2-3 days, and we have a strict control of what to touch, not to touch. So it was very, and we found that through Mr. Mesheda because he had contact through the DRD. They contacted Bonn, and Bonn said yes. So with those days, the government was still in Bonn, not in Berlin. Yeah. So yeah, no, it took I would say a week between one thing and another of doing this filming. Yeah. And I must say the great cinematographer is Thomas C. Wagner. He is a great guy. The photography is great. You know. Yeah. And how do I meet Thomas C. Wagner? I don't remember. But you know, he is still a great cinematographer. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.